You're listening to Expat Radio, your worldwide friend.
Right, we're calling them this morning.
Good morning.
Morning. How the devil are you?
Fantastic. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for everyone to be here on the HeartBeat with me, Christine Saunders, because I have an amazing guest today. Mr. Ray Scott is with me. Dave, I heard you talk about him the last 20 minutes or so coming up to the show, and I just get so amped to have this guest on with me today. So, good morning, Ray.
Morning. How's it going?
Morning, Ray.
It's going
nice
great.
to meet you. How good is that
Hey, you
voice?
too, Dave.
That voice is unbelievable, man. I could bottle that and make a fortune out of you just talking. Oh, keep talking.
Right?
Christine, don't open your mouth. For the next hour, do not open your mouth. This guy's going to earn me a fortune with that voice.
That's what I think. Fantastic voice. Once you hear this deep voice, it's
God.
oh,
He's like
this
a white.
guy's
He's
got
like
it.
a white Barry White. Talk to me about the bath.
Fantastic.
Oh, right.
Yes. So I'm excited today. So let me just tell you. So I have grown up with American country music, and what I really am excited about for April, since it's April 2nd, is the month of April, to me, I wanted to celebrate American country music and have all these amazing artists on. However, everyone is so busy. And the first person, of course, I reached out to was Ray. And on Instagram, I was like, I'm just going to message him, see if he'll want to come on the radio with me. And let me tell you how fangirled out I got when he said, absolutely, I think that would be really awesome. I didn't even know what to say. I was dancing around the house, completely freaking out and super excited because I feel like Ray is the epitome of American country music.
See,
so,
Ray, what you don't know is she said all this to me when I first offered her the opportunity of doing a show on the radio as well. So don't get carried away.
Oh, Dave.
It's unbelievable. She uses this as a chat-up line all day long. I mean, it's ridiculous how far she gets with it, but you know.
Wow, Dave.
I'm just going to put my hands behind my head and put the feet on the desk now. I've got to wear this. I'm waiting for Mr. Scott to speak now.
All right. So that's kind of why, I've been following Ray for 10 years, if not more. And it was really, out of the desire to hear real country music. So that's why I have Ray on today, and I'm super excited. So Ray, can you tell us a little bit about you? And we get to hear some songs of yours today, and maybe hear some funny stories, and just talk about all that is Ray Scott. So tell us about you.
Well, I don't really know where to start. I've been in Nashville for about half my life now, to be honest. I grew up in a little town in North Carolina, and I grew up with a father who was a very popular country singer, kind of in the region. Maybe he was one that had aspirations of going to Nashville, and he never did. The family thing happened, and so he put those dreams on hold. And but I grew up around a lot of hearing a lot of his singing, and hearing a lot of the great artists of the time. I grew up at the front of the 1970s. Well, I was born at the 70s, and I heard a lot of Waylon and Willie and Merle and things like that, and that was the country music that was introduced to me during my most formative years, and so it's hard not to be influenced by it. Obviously I have other influences too, but those are the people that sort of informed my definition of country music for the most part, and sounding the way I sound, it's kind of obvious, that's kind of the direction I was going to be headed. Don Williams was another big influence on me as well. So, I've been lucky to kind of having carve out a niche or an existence here within the industry. I don't consider myself a Nashville insider. I never really have. I did have a major label deal at one point, but yeah, I've got a very independent spirit as far as the music that I write and the way I like to record it, perform it, and it's got a little more of a retro feel about it sometimes. And I never was one to allow the industry to dictate how I did things. So I've been independent now since about 2007 actually, and and it's been the way to go for me. It's made it tough when you don't get a lot of radio airplay in the United States, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Oh, that's exciting. We're going to dive into all of these topics that you've just talked about. We have about 45 minutes left. It goes by really fast when you're having fun, right? So you and I are going to, Dave's going to play the song, but you've chosen some songs to play today. And I don't know if you wanted to do it in any particular order, or if you just want to just play one and we can talk about it. So which one do you want to play first?
Well, let's see. I know we're going to talk about the new EP a little later, so we'll hold off on that. So I guess we could start off with an upbeat song. Those Jeans is one that did really well for me with satellite radio and across Europe and in a lot of places. So, we could do that one. How about that?
Quality.
That sounds great.
Hey, how good is that? I've already got it. I was just thinking to myself, though, before, I could never visualize you in the Stylistics or the Bee Gees. Can you imagine that with your voice and their high pitch?
No.
Oh, I'm going to do a remix. I'm just going to write some homework tonight and just going to see if I can mix one of your songs in with one of theirs and see how that comes out, because that'd be amazing. That you could. How many hearts would you break with you singing on all those kind of songs?
Oh my gosh!
Oh, you might break some eardrums as well.
Oh no, there'd be women swooning. Trust me, I could start a dating agency with your voice. Trust me,
oh
a fortune. Right, we're going to those jeans with Mr. Ray Scott.
You're listening to Expat Radio, your worldwide friend.
All the time.
That is fantastic.
I was going to say, all the years I've looked at women thinking, God, I want to get it, and never thought of bringing a song out about it.
Well, you could get punched in the face also.
I'm going to go out with a welder's mask on. Welder's mask and a gum shield. That'll do for me. Doesn't matter.
Oh, my gosh. Ray, what's the inspiration for that song? Did you just feel like you wanted to write something fun, or did you witness something, or...
it was just writing something fun. I've often been guilty of getting off by myself and just kind of getting goofy, and sometimes, if it's something that is going down a road that seems to entertain me or make me laugh, I figure, well, I'm kind of hard on myself. I think there's a lot of potentially funny songs that I don't finish, that I never let the world hear necessarily. So you have to be picky about what you go with. But yeah, that was one. I was just sitting home one Saturday night. I was not on the road, and I was bored, and just happened to, have that little pickup line in my mind or whatever. Just turned into what it turned into,
Yeah, every time I play that song for friends or people, they're like, "Oh, I get it. That is the best song I've ever heard." Like they're like, "Yes, I love it. It's awesome." So I wanna jump into way back in the day when Ray Scott decided I'm gonna be a country music artist. Tell us about the first time you realized, like, this is what I want to do.
Well, it's an interesting story as far as being a country music artist goes. As I was talking about earlier, growing up with the father who was into country music so much, he was a singer and everything. I was exposed early to it. There was it was in my house. It was kind of what basically what we heard all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I developed obviously a very deep recognition for it. But when I was a teenager, I got a little rebellious and got into some hard rock and roll and whatever, and So when I was, when I decided to pursue music, I think I was in high school, maybe junior high age, and I was writing a lot of poetry and a lot of stuff what I consider to be song lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And my first band I joined at age 19. Now it was a rock band, and because at the time I was still into that a little more. I wasn't quite in the country music state of mind just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were playing on country radio at the time was not something that stood out to me, or I just didn't pay attention because I was still rebelling against obviously when you're a teenager, everything that your parents are into is not cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that was kind of me. I was the same way, and but it wasn't until I was playing and doing the rock and roll thing for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, that I started realizing as I would write songs and sing songs, my sound and my lyrical sensibilities and things like that just naturally kind of drifted more towards country music. And at the time, I was also discovering people like Dwight Yoakam and Steve Earle, and Travis Tritt and some others that were coming out around that period, and really hearing some stuff that I liked. And I've always been a big fan of the sound of the steel guitar, regardless. And I just, it just led me in that direction. And once I decided, that I needed to pursue country music as opposed to what I was doing, I immersed myself in it. I listened to all the music I could, especially a lot of what was coming out at the moment. And I went back some years to and rediscovered a lot of the stuff that I grew up on, and so that's kind of what set me on the road that I ended up on.
Yeah. Tell us about the first time that you ever played on stage in front of an audience. Like, what's going through your mind at that point? Like, not necessarily the rock and roll part, because that's like you're in a band and you're like, it's jazz, pumped up and that sort of stuff. Like you, Ray Scott, playing in front of an audience, playing country music.
Well, I mean, it's kind of it's a haze if I think about it. I mean, I really don't. It's hard to describe the first time necessarily playing country music because I'd gotten so used to playing in general. The first time I played in front of people in general with a band was in I think around 1990, and it was at a place called the Berkeley Cafe in Raleigh, North Carolina. The thing that I remember about that and just about the early days in general, just playing on stage, it's a little nerve wracking. I mean. It's old hat to me now, but I still get on edge a little bit beforehand, and I think that gives you an edge. But yeah, I mean, it was just it's the first time I did it. The thing that I do remember more than anything else was the high that you got from it, and it solidified my ambitions, so to speak.
Right.
But it's kind of nerve wracking to put yourself out there that way. I mean, and the funny thing was back then, my singing voice was not developed very well, and I just didn't really know yet how to deliver a song. Even now, I mean, my voice and the way I sing songs is completely relative to the way I write songs. I'm not one who can record other people's songs. I usually it's got to be something I wrote because it has to be my language. And,
right.
I'm still waiting to develop mine as well.
That I've developed over the years.
Yeah. What was that, Dave?
I said I'm still waiting to develop my singing voice as well. It sounds like I'm being strangled at the moment when I try to do anything.
Oh my god! Oh gosh. So Ray, is it easier to write love songs or like songs like Those Jeans for you?
Honestly, it depends on the day. I can't really say one is easier than the other. It just depends. Writing for me is all about having a great inspiration or a great hook or title that leads me down the road to write a song. I mean, without the idea, you don't really have a song. So,
right.
Whatever the idea ends up being, is I wouldn't say any of it is truly easy. Now, I do have certain songs that have come to me as a whole a lot quicker. I mean, I wrote those jeans probably in less than an hour.
Oh my gosh.
But there's been others that have taken longer, and I write alone a lot. And in Nashville that's not the norm. I mean, Nashville is such a co-writing town that that's sort of a different approach, and I do enjoy co-writing from time to time, but I've always felt like, if you can write, if you do have the ability to write along, you should, because then that song is completely unique to you, and it's not really being watered down or affected by someone else. I mean, I've done a lot of co-writes over the years that I wish that I hadn't shared the idea with the other person, because the song ended up being something that I didn't really visualize.
Right.
But so it's either way, it's fun. I really enjoy writing both types of songs. I mean, I like writing dark stuff. I mean, but like I said, it all depends on the day. It all depends on the idea and the inspiration. Without an inspiration, you got nothing. So.
Right. Well, the next song that I think we should play is Ain't Always Thirsty. And, I found this article from the Daily Country where you described writing that song, and I'm just going to read it. And then you can, add to it. But you said in that article that that song is one of the most gut-wrenching things I've ever written. Also one of the most therapeutic. When I wrote this song, I was going through a divorce and at a very low point in my life. I was realizing my mistakes, dealing with regret, and really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Those times which are important for learning's sake, The song came from a dark place, a sad place, but sent me to a path of improvement and recovery. And so I think the important part about this is also this last sentence. Considering the early reactions from the feedback, I think that there are a lot of people out there not only can relate to this, but also miss hearing that type of sound in a song. I think the whole relate to this is huge. Country music is about storytelling, right? And so, that in itself, I was like, that speaks to me. That gave me chills. So, does that kind of sum up the writing process for Ain't Always Thirsty?
It does. It's still one that's a special one when I play it. The reaction over the years now from people has been tremendous. I've had a lot of people relate to that song. A lot of people record that song, and they put little videos of themselves doing it on Facebook and Instagram and places like that, and tag me. So it's I mean, I've had people cover my songs over the years, some, so it's always, it's always flattering and thrilling to hear people do that. But this one by far has been the one that folks seem to have covered the most, so it tells me a lot about it. And, it's one of those, I grew up loving, country music is real life, to me, and especially the older stuff, some of the newer stuff, maybe not so much, but, the real sad stuff, that was right from the heart, where you could hear the hurt, that's the stuff that got me hooked on it. And I think I was just happy to sort of maybe accomplish the same type of thing with that song.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and play that one, Dave. Ain't Always Thirsty, and we'll be back with Ray Scott.
You're listening to Expat Radio, your worldwide friend.
Oh, how brilliant is that?
That hit you, that, didn't it? Oh, that was a bit gut-wrenching. I could feel a lump coming in my throat then. Filling up.
Oh, I love it. That's one of my favorite Ray Scott's. Well, I have a lot of them. I'm not going to say that. They're all my favorite.
You were getting emotional while you were reading that out before. She's a bag of it. She's a nightmare, Ray. Honest to God. She'll cry at Terminator. When you're watching a film. She's just so emotional sometimes.
Us girls are emotional, Dave. We've had this conversation before. Oh my gosh. No, I love that song. And there's a lot of songs that I just dig. But I want to sort of jump into, you said something about being a fan of the steel guitar. I am as well. It just gets me right in my heart. And so, like, describe for us what elements need to be present to make real country music, that sound of real country music.
Well, I think it's, I guess it's different things to different people. Now, to me, I grew up hearing steel guitar. I always associate that with the country song. But quite frankly, I mean, it was used in some rock and roll and some pop stuff back when, so I don't want to, pigeonhole anything. I think at the end of the day, you just hear the emotion in a real country song. I mean, I think the what's country and what's not country argument is something that's been around for a long time. So different people have different takes on it. In my opinion, I do like to hear, the steel guitar, Telecaster, that kind of stuff. I mean, but it's more about a sparse production. It's more about hearing the heart in something and not having something be so filled up with instrumentation that it takes away from the emotion of the words and the vocal.
Right. And do you feel like it's like a unique sound? Like sometimes what, we hear nowadays is kind of cookie cutter, like everyone kind of sounds the same.
Yeah. There are some artists today that I can listen to. I don't listen to the radio very much, but I do have to admit that every now and again, there's still a really good song that comes out. Sometimes you have to be a little more open-minded to the production style and the treatment of the actual track to get past that long enough to hear the quality in the lyric. So, I don't want to be completely closed-minded. You can't really, one thing that's always going to be happening with music is evolution.
Right.
And I can see, when I was a little kid, I was, enjoying quite a bit of music that my dad found offensive to his ears.
Right.
And I think every generation kind of feels like, what they grew up on was better than what's out at the current time. I've been, having been doing this for over 20 years now, I've seen a new generation or two come along that not only listens to a different style of quote unquote country music, but they were influenced by a different style as well. So, I mean, there's people that I know in Nashville who thinks, maybe, Kenny Chesney was their first example of country that they ever heard, or, or even someone after that. So it's all relative to your experience. At the end of the day, I want to hear a good story. I want to hear something that cuts to the heart, something that's real, and something that's quality. And as long as it's got all those elements, then I think I'm a little more open-minded to how it's produced or whatever. So.
Right. So, going back to, all this evolution that you just talked about, and you and I talked pre-show, and you were talking about doing a writers. You were doing something with some writers, and like there's these folks that are out there trying to get, discovered and get on the radio. And you said something to me that was really interesting. You're like, I am not trying to get discovered at this point. And so it's different for you. Can you talk about that?
Well, one thing I do want to just articulate correctly is I am trying to get discovered in the sense of new people hearing my music. I mean, that's always the case. I'm always trying to find ways of getting it out there for new listeners. Now, I'm not trying to get discovered, in the sense that like people move to Nashville to get discovered by record labels and whatever else. I've been down that road. I've had the major label record deal. I've had a few publishing deals and songwriter deals. people play in Nashville all the time. I mean, there's something going on every night here. There are thousands of would-be aspiring songwriters and singers that are here playing in these writers' rounds and things like that, different little bars and whatever that are trying to, not be discovered, but they're also trying to hone their skills and do a little, what's the word? I guess, they just rub elbows with other industry people, other people of the same ilk. And I went through that stage for a long time in Nashville. These days I've kind of established myself somewhat out there with people. I'm at an age now too, in my 40s, that I mean, it's very unlikely that some big label is going to come along and want to sign me now anyway. Especially since I've already kind of been signed to a label. I had a top 40 hit, 14 years ago. And, so a lot of times they tend to put guys like me out to pasture, in a sense, in this town. Now, I'm totally fine with that. I've sort of created that potential situation myself years ago when I decided to become a little more rebellious. And, I wanted to do things my own way as opposed to listening to a bunch of people at a record label trying to tell me how to do things, because nobody there had ever proven to me that they really knew what they were talking about. So, and it's different for everybody, and the great thing about it these days is there's a lot going on out on the World Wide Web, so things like that. There are many different new platforms. It's not all about what they're playing on the radio, especially mainstream. Right. So, it's so Nashville is only home base for me. It's not really a place that I'm out trying to hustle. I feel like stylistically and everything else. It's kind of pointless for me to try to go and do what these people are doing to all these clap tracks and whatever else. It's just not going to work.
Right. So you talked about the World Wide Web, and I know that you are a fan of digital music, and how has that changed the industry, and how has that helped you?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, not a sword, but there's pros and cons, Now, for a guy like me, it helps out, one, digital music, for one thing, is great. Streaming is a whole other thing. Digital sales are still sales, they still pay us enough money to justify, putting them out there and actually going in the studio and making it, because it's an expensive process to make an album or an EP or whatever. So you want to see a return on your money. Now the streaming world, okay, for a guy like me who is an artist, who is still out there playing shows and existing within the marketplace, streaming is a good thing in the sense that that a lot of people are being exposed to your music. Now, it doesn't pay at all, hardly. It doesn't pay songwriters very well at all either. It's honestly, it's completely unfair and one-sided when it comes to that. And so, and as a result, there are a lot of songwriters here in Nashville. And when I say songwriter, I'm talking about people who exist solely as songwriters who are trying to get other people to record the songs that they write. They're not out there on the road themselves, playing shows, selling merch, and that kind of thing. So for songwriters, the streaming thing is really a bad deal. Now, I'm a songwriter, so it's a bad deal for me because I'm not getting paid as the songwriter, but I am getting the exposure, which is the work we and I'm getting the visibility, and so I do benefit from it in that way. And then we go out and we try to make up for that by playing shows, hopefully selling tickets, selling T-shirts, selling CDs, which I do still sell physical CDs quite a bit. So,
Good.
it's a different world. We're not selling records the way they used to. I mean,
Right.
we saw the golden era of music come and go in our lifetime when it comes to music being sold. These days, people, the newer generations, I don't think even assume that it's necessary for them to pay for music, and that whole mindset was created, when file sharing or stealing essentially
Right.
started 15 years ago, 16, 18 years ago, and it kind of brought us to where we are today. So we've got a whole generation of kids out there, and adults as well that have always taken for granted that they could get music on the internet online for free. So they don't really
Right.
see the value or a reason to pay for it. They don't stop and realize, hey, this is what we depend on to make our living.
Right.
But it is it's the society that has been
Yeah.
created. So there's a lot to address out there in that world. There's the digital music boom was great for me. I mean, hey, those jeans sold a few 100,000 copies on iTunes, and that was without any kind of money spent promoting it.
Right.
So that was all profit. So that was considered a big success for me, being being an independent artist. But
Right.
but that was back when a few years back, 6 or 8 years ago, when before streaming became the most popular thing to do. So
Right.
we're always moving forward, and you have to adapt, but it makes it extremely hard for songwriters in Nashville or anywhere to adapt when the cards are stacked so high against them. It's always been hard to move to Nashville and get your song recorded and have it become a hit on the radio by someone else. I mean, that's, and I've had that happen. It's a thrilling thing. But it's even harder now. And
Yeah.
one of the things that makes it even harder is that unless you have a song that becomes a hit on the radio, on mainstream radio, you're not going to make any money as a songwriter because mechanical royalties don't exist really hardly anymore because people aren't selling albums. So
Right.
if you have a quote unquote album cut with someone, it ain't going to make any money. So you're going to still need to get that job down the road at Home Depot, or
Oh
whatever.
gosh.
And
Right.
it's a pretty grim situation for a lot of people. I've seen a lot of really talented, really great writers essentially quit the business and go get a real job somewhere else. I mean, because they have to. And
Yeah.
that's the sad thing about it. We've got a lot of corporate types out there that run everything and own everything that they're more worried about stuff in their own pockets than they are taking care of the people who provide the material for them.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to another song and talking about your new release. And do you want to do Thank You Baby or Honky Tonk Heart first?
Well, we could do Honky Tonk Heart. This song is one that is basically describing my life. It's also a little nod to all the other troubadours running up and down the highways, playing real country music because that's what we love to do. We're taking it to the people. We're we're taking one for the team.
Yeah, it's a good tune. So we'll play Honky Tonk Heart, and we'll be right back and have a few more questions for you, and then we'll play your last song.
All right, sounds good.
The station with the best music. Best music.
I love the music.
Best music.
You're listening to Expat Radio, your worldwide friend.
Honky Tonk Heart on the HeartBeat. How fantastic is that? That is awesome.
That's a lively number, huh?
It is. It makes you want to get up and dance.
I can't keep my right foot still. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to need home help in a minute to get me out of the chair. I can't get my legs juddering all the time here. Foot tapping.
Foot tapping, yes. Oh, my gosh.
The thing is, the older you get with something like that, it becomes an affliction. Nobody knows if you're enjoying yourself or if you're actually on the edge of being going mad.
Oh my gosh! So Ray, tell us about this new EP you have, Honky Tonk Heart. Tell us.
Yeah, and you just heard the title track. Yeah, it's this new EP is kind of the beginning of the next chapter. After I released my last album, Guitar for Sale, I had a little time off, and all of a sudden I started really flowing quite a bit creatively again. I was doing a lot of writing, and those are some of the first few songs that I wrote that date back a couple of years now. There's a whole lot more coming.
Awesome.
But it's, the EP approach is something that I've adopted reluctantly at first. But, because I've always appreciated the album so much as a work of art. I feel, it's a journey. It's a trip. And with the EP, you have less songs, so it's a little harder to tell a whole story. But in this day and age, with the way people consume music, I think especially if you're dependent on social media to kind of keep your face out there or whatever, you kind of have to release more music more often to stay more relevant. So that's kind of the approach we're taking now, and it's like I say, it's just sort of the beginning of what's next for me, and it's definitely a new chapter, and I'm looking forward to seeing how people take to it. So far, it seems pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go out on tour quite often, and where's your favorite place to play?
Well, you know what? It's hard for me to define one place or in particular. My favorite place, to be honest with you, my favorite place to play is the next place that I'm going, especially if I haven't been before. Because it's an opportunity to appeal to a new crowd of people in a brand new town, a new state, a new country, or whatever else, and that's really what it's all about. Bringing new people into the fold and sort of seeing new places myself as I go. That's one of the big things I love about touring is although I love going back to some of the same places that have been good to me, that's a wonderful thing. I really enjoy going to new places and seeing having new experiences. So yeah, my favorite place to play is the next place I'm going. Every show is different. Some nights are more. It's always fun. Some nights are better than others. Some nights you have a bigger crowd. Some nights there's something in the air. Some nights there's a variation all the time, but it keeps everything in check. And so if you have a bad night somewhere, it's really a good night because it's going to help you recognize the really great night when it comes along too. So
yeah. And people can see your tour on your rayscott.com, right?
Yeah, rayscott.com. Just hit tour, and all the dates will be on there now. Sometimes we don't book very far out in advance, so I would say if you don't see anything near you at a certain time of year, definitely check back because we do update it quite often.
Awesome. Cool. We have one last song to play today, and it's called Thank You, Baby, and it's off of your new Honky Tonk Heart EP. And thank you so much today for coming and getting up early with me and being on the show with me. And
I would also add, too, if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, it's at Ray Scott Music. We also have at Reality Check on Twitter, and if anybody would like to please come and like my official Ray Scott page on Facebook, that would be great too. So
yes, thank you. I spaced out saying that. So yeah, definitely go follow Ray. Fantastic. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Dave, for having us today. And
you're welcome, guys.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Great talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, and you, and it was a pleasure to have you on the show as well, sir.
Good deal.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
The voice. It's the voice, right, Dave?
Yeah, I'm just looking for a bag of ice very shortly, that's all.
Oh my gosh. Thank you both very much. This is Thank You Baby from Ray Scott.